Good morning, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. A copy of the Open Meetings Act is located on the north wall of the legislative chambers, and an automatic external defibrillator is available on the back wall of the legislative chambers. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will begin with the agenda for the Douglas County Board of Equalization. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Boyle, Commissioner Kavanaugh, Commissioner Duda, Commissioner Kraft, Commissioner Morgan, Commissioner Rogers. Madam Chair.
Here, item A, approval of the minutes of the Board of Equalization meeting held Tuesday, May 12, 2015. And item B, call for a meeting and set June 2nd, 2015 as a date for hearing on certified assessment corrections reflecting the addition of omitted property to the tax rolls or increased value on property. Any questions or comments? Please vote.
Motion passes.
Citizen comments. Is there anyone in the chamber wishing to speak to the Board of Equalization about an item not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move to resolutions. The resolutions D through L.
To approve and adjourn. Second.
Any questions or comments? Please vote.
Motion passes.
We will move to the agenda for the Douglas County Board of Commissioners. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Boyle, Commissioner Kavanaugh, Commissioner Duda, Commissioner Kraft, Commissioner Morgan, Commissioner Rogers. Madam Chair.
Michael, I've never seen you move that fast to get out of here. And Commissioner Boyle isn't even here. Item 1, minutes and claims. Item A, approval of the minutes of the Board of Commissioners meeting held Tuesday, May 12, 2015. And item B, approval of claims submitted for payment process through Tuesday, May 26, 2015.
Motion to approve A and B.
Any questions or comments? Please vote.
Motion passes.
Consent agenda, items A through F, and there's been a request by Commissioner Kavanaugh to lay over E, which is the reappointment of Charles Cederstrom III to the Douglas County Housing Authority Board, and he's just asking so that he has time to review his resume, and so we'll put that back on in 2 weeks.
Motion to approve and accept. Second.
Anyone else? Please vote.
Motion passes.
Recognition and proclamations. There's a recognition of a county employee, Karen C. Stillmock, retiring from the Douglas County Assessor Register of Deeds after 16 years of service. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Commissioners. Karen Butch, Human Resources Director. Today we are before you to recognize an employee who's retiring. The resolution is, whereas Douglas County, Nebraska recognizes that its employees are the county's most important asset and resource for providing quality service to the citizens of Douglas County, and whereas the county wishes to recognize Ms. Karen C. Stillmock of the Douglas County Assessor and Register of Deeds Department on her retirement and her dedicated service of 16 years to the Douglas County, Nebraska. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of County Commissioners, Douglas County, Nebraska, and the county recognizes Ms. Karen C. Stillmock for her dedicated service to the citizens of Douglas County and thankfully presents this resolution as testimony thereof, dated this day, 19th of May, 2015.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve?
Approval. Second.
Diane?
Diane Battiato, Assessor Register of Deeds. I have worked with Karen. Karen is shy, and after 16 years of service with Douglas County, you have to wonder how that ever happens. But But she is up there diligently working up in the office today. Her last day, I think, is Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. But I just want to say a few words on the behalf of employees like Karen. As the baby boomers generation comes to their end of their work, their full-time work life, we're losing a very embedded work ethic that we hope to carry on through the newer generations. And it's a specific work ethic that you come to work, you do the job that you're paid to do, you learn things that might be uncomfortable for you, and you learn them agreeably and positively, and you really bring a lot to the table. And Karen is one of those employees. I worked with her in the early 90s when I was an employee in the Register of Deeds office. We became very good work partners. Her work ethic and her investment in her job has never changed through the 16 years she's worked for the county. Now, in the last 10 years, going on 11, she's worked for me, and that relationship has really not changed. It's been a good work partnership effort. And all I can say is that it's wonderful that the baby boomers are able to retire, but we are losing a very embedded and positive atmosphere of our workforce. And we will miss Karen, and the county will miss Karen. So thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Please vote.
Motion passes.
Next is a recognition of the Steam Fitters and Plumbers Local 464 for their 100th year anniversary. And I put this on because I attended with my husband their anniversary dinner, and it was quite a night, an amazing night to celebrate their 100th year as its local charter. And so I just wanted, as a board, to recognize them and thank them for their work that they do, especially with the Heats On program. Many of us here on the board have been present at that kickoff every year that they do that, but they do it voluntarily. They all gather at the hall, and then they go out based on the information that they get from the likes of agencies like the Eastern Nebraska Office on Aging, who have elderly that need their furnaces checked before the cold weather comes. They go out and do a check and make sure the pilot's lit and it's all in good working order. And they do that all day long. And we really do appreciate that service, and they've done it for years. But I will read the resolution. Whereas on May 16, 2015, the Steam Fitters and Plumbers Local Union 464 celebrated the 100th anniversary of its local charter. And whereas Local 464 represents over 800 members working within the plumbers and pipe fitting industries in our region. And whereas originally founded in October 1889 in Washington, D.C. as the United Association of Journeymen Plumbers, Gas Fitters, Steam Fitters, and Steam Fitters Helpers, Local 464 now represents members throughout Nebraska and within 12 western Iowa counties. And whereas Local 464 is proud to have made significant contributions to the local steam fitting and plumbing industries by maintaining and promoting high industry standards and codes, protecting our workforce, and promoting workplace integrity. And whereas plumbing and pipe fitting are skilled and often highly complex modern trade crafts that significantly affect everyone. As such, systems are essential for all residential and commercial buildings alike. And whereas this board wishes to recognize the contributions to our region by the Steam Fitters and Plumbers Local 464 and extend its sincere congratulations in recognition of the union's 100-year anniversary of its charter. Now therefore be it resolved by this Board of County Commissioners, Douglas County, Nebraska, that this board hereby recognizes and commends the Steam Fitters and Plumbers Local Union 464 for its 100 years of contributions to organized labor in our region, and wishes all members continued success. Dated this 19th day of May 2015. And if you want to come up and say anything, we would appreciate it. But is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Okay, come on.
My name is Dave Johnson. I've been a member for 41 years. I have a father that got honored the other night for 60, and my son now is about ready to turn out. We're very proud of the accomplishments of 464, and we're starting on our second 100 years.
There you go.
So thank you all for honoring us, and we'll do our best to make everybody happy and keep them safe.
Well, and we will have a resolution for you to take back to the office, and I have the program here from that night that you all can look at, because they recognized 25-year.
Yeah,
and
25
up to,
is the first.
Yeah, to 60. And it was pretty cool when the ones 60 years walked across that stage.
Yeah, my dad has like 63, so it was pretty cool going up there with him and my son.
That was neat. Well, why don't you come around and shake our hands?
Okay.
Thank you very much for being here.
Congratulations.
Please vote.
Motion passes.
Citizen comments. Is there anyone here wishing to speak to the Board of Commissioners about an item not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move to public hearings. A special use permit request application for Scott E. Brune Enterprises, Inc., DBA Pheasant Haven. A special use permit request for commercial hunting preserve, including operations of a controlled shooting area for shooting upland game and gun dog training. This was before our planning board last Wednesday. And it was approved on a 3-2 vote, and action at this board can be taken today after the public hearing. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Doug Cook, your Planning and Zoning Coordinator. Haven't seen you since before this year, actually. It was December. So the Planning Commission did meet last Wednesday. As the Madam Chairman said, it's for a hunting preserve, including a controlled shooting area for upland game and gun dog training. The Scott Brune and Pheasant Haven has been in front of the county for a planning application since 1991. So at one point it was a conditional use permit, now it's a special use permit. The acreage may have changed and the name may have changed over the years, but basically the intent is the same. So where are we? Where is the application? 9191 North 225th, so we are south of Elk City. We are southwest of Newport Hill, and we are east of the Elkhorn River on the bluffs. This is a picture of the comp plan. You can see the lake right here. This is the Brune property in that area, and this area is designated environmentally constrained, which basically means it's scenic, it's hilly, and it's rugged terrain. And it's a very beautiful part of the county. The areas here highlighted by the blue circles show the Brune property along with 2 other properties that have signed easements. And the Pheasant Haven application covers properties on both the east and the west sides of North 225th. The areas in red were in the last application, which was heard in 2010. They are not included in this application this year. This is the same picture without the, some of the background information. Here's the zoning map. The couple things to show here. Here's the lake. This is the Brune property. This line is the City of Omaha 3-mile extraterritorial jurisdictional line. So part of this application is in city jurisdiction, part is in ours. I have sent information to the city. I've received no response from them. However, 5 years ago, we had a letter from the city, or an email from the city that said the county can take lead on this because most of the property is in our jurisdiction. So the Brune property is in yellow. The circles signify where some nearby existing residents are. At the Planning Commission meeting, we had pretty extensive commentary, as you probably read in the minutes. We have one neighbor here, and so, Brad, I think this is your property here, correct? Yep. Mike Schonlau from our GIS department prepared this map. One of the many conditions that was placed on the applicant back in 2010 is that there is a 200-yard buffer for shooting. And so this pink area on the east side and this little area on the west side show that. Now, what this doesn't show is that neighbors can sign waivers allowing shooting within 100 yards. These, the areas in red here show the neighbors who have signed waivers. So again, the Broom property is in yellow, the waivered property is in red. And we do have, or will have, copies of those waivers in our files. Now, as I was out at the site, took some pictures for you. You see on the right-hand side is our required sign. The sign is one of 3 notifications. The sign is the first. Publication in the Post-Gazette and the Daily Record is the second. And the third is that 74 letters were sent to property owners within 1 mile. And that is as required by our regulations. Just general terrain pictures. It's rolling terrain, very picturesque. From 2010, the difference from then to now is the fact that there's less acreage involved in the request. There's 176, we're going from 176 to 152 this year. There were also 2 conditions placed on the application that are being deleted from this year's. The first one is to delete a reference to live trap escaped birds, and then there was a reference to field trials. The applicant has agreed to drop those 2 from this year's request. The Planning Commission recommendation then, on a 3 in favor, 2 against, 1 abstain vote, was to delete those 2 conditions and to change the permit ending date, to add a 10-year term to this current permit. Now, what I neglected to say in the beginning is that since 1991, the applicant has pretty much been on a 5-year term. And that's the last time we heard this application was 2010. So the Planning Commission recommendation was for 10 years. The staff recommendation remains at 5 years. Since last Wednesday's meeting, I did contact the 2 Planning Commission members who voted against the motion for 10 years. They both sent me an email and said they would have voted in favor of the application for 5 years. They were opposed to the 10. We've also received a letter in favor from Jill Seaman, a letter from Brad Underwood, and then a list of all the different waivers. So the Planning Commission recommendation is to approve with the same conditions from 2010 minus those 2, and a review in 10 years. The staff recommendation is the same thing, but with a review in 5 years.
Okay, thank you. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone here wishing to speak for or against the application?
Good morning. My name is Lee Hammond, 1601 Dodge Street, Omaha, Nebraska. I'm the attorney for Scott E. Bruin Enterprises, Inc., doing business as Pheasant Haven, the applicant for the special use permit. I will keep my comments short. Some of you have heard a lot about Pheasant Haven over the years. I've unfortunately been around for 25 years from the very beginning. I was younger then.
Weren't we all?
Yeah, exactly. So we have a situation here with a good business in western Douglas County, 25 years of safe operation and outdoor enjoyment as a controlled shooting area that's permitted under the Game and Parks Commission controlled shooting area permit process for commercial game hunting. This enables the property to be economically viable as open space. It provides critical habitat for wildlife, preserves our hunting heritage, and as noted in Doug's comments, this is an environmentally sensitive area. It's rugged territory, and it's a way to keep it open and to preserve its natural beauty as opposed to not being able to farm it effectively and encouraging more development out there, which I don't think is in the master plan. The special conditions are, Doug touched on those. They actually benefit the neighbors by placing strict restrictions on the hunting and shooting activities. Without these restrictions, non-commercial hunting and shooting would not be restricted except for the general compliance with applicable state laws. So that basically means that the current restrictions prohibit rifle and pistol shooting on the east side of the road. On the west side, it's allowed only for the property owner, not for commercial activity. But you would go back to a zero buffer, except in the case under state law of a feed yard or a dwelling, you have to stay 100 yards back for shotgun shooting. So that would push, he could go out there and privately hunt, and he could have his controlled shooting area permit and hunt the controlled shooting season. As I mentioned, non-commercial rifle and handgun shooting would not be restricted, again, other than as restricted by state law. And there are a number of other benefits in having the conditional use permit, but I think this is a significant benefit to the neighborhood. Doug mentioned the waivers that have been signed by some of the adjoining property owners. Actually, it's a permission to hunt within the 200-yard buffer, and so that could potentially, if a neighbor decided to grant that waiver, take it to the fence line, if you will. State law still applies as far as a 100-yard buffer unless permission is granted to hunt closer. For example, if I have a house in the country and somebody wants to hunt on my land, I can say, you can hunt closer to the buildings than 100 yards. That's strictly up to the property owner. All of these waivers that have been signed are revocable by the landowner. If they don't want, if they don't want people in the buffer, they can revoke the waiver. So Doug also mentioned that we've requested the removal of the holding field trials. We just don't see the need to do that, and there was some concern last time around. We just decided not to mess with it. We're in full agreement with the Douglas County Planning Commission resolution that was passed last week, including the 10-year renewal cycle. There's a couple of neighbors, a family, and Brad Underwood, who I think is here today, that would like to have that done on a shorter renewal cycle. I have to tell you that even at 5 years, it's tough sledding for a small business. I mean, you invest a lot in your advertising, building up your clientele, and you don't know whether you're going to be around a few years from now. And it's costly to go through the process. There's the application fees, there's the search of the neighborhood, there's me. So it is burdensome. So we really feel like 10 years is appropriate. This has been going on for 25 years, and it's really the people that are new to the neighborhood that knew that Pheasant Haven was there when they bought their land that have really been arguing for a shorter cycle. With that, I would say, just respectfully ask that you please approve the special use permit as recommended by the Planning Commission. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Scott's here if you have any questions for him, and I'd like to reserve a couple minutes, if I could, for rebuttal in case there's anything that comes up that we need to speak to.
Commissioner Kraft?
Is the gentleman who sent us the letter here, is that you? Were you going to speak to us? Yes. You're welcome to. Yeah. Then I'll ask my questions.
Commissioner Kavanaugh?
Mr. Harmon?
Harmon?
This enterprise has been in operation at this location for some time?
Yes, since like 1990, 91.
Right. And prior to this proposal, what's been the term of the agreement heretofore?
As far as the permit?
Well, this has a 5 or 10-year duration, and the duration of the prior agreements has been what?
5 years.
5 years, all the way back?
All the way back to the beginning.
Okay. And You're agreeable with a 5-year duration on this proposal?
Well, that's kind of a tough question. We would agree with it, but we really think the 10 years was appropriate too, but we would live with 5 years.
Okay, you've been operating under 5 years?
Yes, we have.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Underwood, there's no other commissioners wanting to ask questions to Mr. Hammond. Could you come forward? Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Can I put that slide back up? It's Brad Underwood, 8605 North 225th.
Which one are you thinking here?
The one that shows the pink hunting area.
That one?
My home is on the southwest corner, right next to the legend of the map. There, it's the kind of the piece that's taken out. And I'm here to see if we can seek a compromise and some peace of mind. We've been out here 13 years, and the area has changed even in that 13 years. And I know it's changed. It's not 1991 out in there anymore. The city has put the jurisdiction line through there. When we basically rebuilt our house a couple years ago, it was all city permits, and we followed all the city ordinances. And so I spoke in opposition at the planning meeting, and I also sent a letter. The 10-year renewal does not seem in line with the fact that the city is right up against the hunting preserve, plotting subdivisions. I'm in a new city subdivision. I know the neighbors have 3 or 4. There's a house going up. There's 3 other lots there that are in a city subdivision. And I guess as a house that's 70 yards away from the border, I'd like some consideration taken into my experience, which has been having shot hit my barn, having shot fly across the property, and having to just instinctively duck. My request of Scott before this process was to pull the piece of land that is just north of me, they're kind of the flag-shaped lot, out of the hunting permit area, because as the county map shows, there is no allowable hunting on that piece. It's entirely buffer. That led us into a discussion at planning about whether the area that was on there was actually the buffer or not. And I guess I'd like you guys to ask the applicant if he agrees with that map and the total of 12.5 actual acres of hunting, or if it's just this is how we've run it since 1991, and some of the neighbors will give up some buffer area and some of them won't. Does this work? Can I turn this on? I just, and one of the things that came up at planning is that there hadn't been any complaints, and I haven't complained to the county. I haven't complained to the sheriff. It seems like a waste of time. I mean, I try and be a good neighbor. I call Scott directly when there's an issue, but this is going to be hard to see. But I also take pictures and send them over every time that I have hunters that are in this buffer zone. And maybe they're flushing birds. I don't know, but when I see a group with orange vests coming over the hill, I get my children in the house. They're 4 and 6, because I don't know if somebody's going to shoot or not. Here's one from January. If I could have that other map again, I'll show you the area where these hunters are. Do I have any way to point to this? Yeah.
Which map did you
I've got it.
Oh, okay.
Here's where I am. Here's where the hunters in those pictures, they're between this hill crest and this area. I asked Scott earlier this year, if you guys are flushing birds, can you take the orange vests off so I know that you're not coming over the hill to hunt? And I don't know how this buffer is defined. I mean, we were talking about this. It's a no shooting area. Can I have loaded shells in my shotgun in the buffer area? You know, I don't know what exactly that buffer means, and that might be a Game and Parks question. But I would answer any questions. That's all I've got. You've pretty much got my take on it. I guess I'm asking for a compromise and some relief.
Commissioner Kraft?
Yes. I have a problem with the 10-year extension, to be very upfront with you. I do have some questions. You've seen a lot of changes, and these are not for you, but these are somewhat commentary at the moment. Over the past 13 years, I think the changes are going to come much faster over the next 5 and 10 years because of the changing nature of the city of Omaha and the encroaching population. I'm just wondering how we can address your concerns, Mr. Underwood, about, and I'd like to ask either the attorney or the gentleman who runs the place, how do your participants know where the boundaries are, where the buffer zone is? Could somebody answer that, please?
Yeah, under the special use permit, he's required to put out markers to mark that boundary. In the past, what he's done is roughly every 25 yards. So it's pretty clear when you've crossed the line and when you're in the safe zone.
Okay. And what are these markers consisting of?
They've been steel fence posts with a bright orange marker on them, and in some cases you've had the tall PVC pipe with white pipe with an orange
So they're
band.
fairly obvious. They're
Yeah.
not small little flags like the survey crews put out. Okay. How can we address Mr. Underwood's concerns?
Well, I think keeping the boundary of the buffer zone clearly marked is the way to do that. If somebody wants to go in and flush a bird, they can. I don't think they carry their guns in there anyhow, but you'd make sure that they don't have guns on them.
Yes.
Identify yourself.
I'm Scott Brune. I live at 9191 North 225th Street. I come from a family of hunters, 100 years of hunting. My grandpa and great uncle used to trap the river in the Depression era, and they used to live pretty good. Anyway, I'm just trying to explain myself that I've been hunting for a long time. I go with the hunters. I will be with every group. There'll be 4 people to a group. I will be inside the buffer zone area. I will not shoot towards Mr. Underwood's house. A bird flies that way, no bird. Been doing this a long time. And we really appreciate the neighbors, love the neighbors. I'm a born-again Christian. I know what authority means. I know how you respect authority. And going back to the concerns of Mr. Underwood, of a hunter, we can go inside the buffer zone to flush a bird. And with a gun, it says no shooting in the buffer zone. To help him, we won't be anywhere near you. We won't even be on Narber's ground, which borders you. The buffer zone takes us another 200 besides the buffer zone we give you. So it'll be 400, which should be a good, safe concern for Mr. Underwood.
Can you go to the map and point that out, Lee, that orange one where Mr. Underwood's, where it's orange and red, or orange and yellow, whatever the colors were?
That one, Commissioner?
There was a...
Nope.
No?
There was a better one than
A
that.
better one than that? Not that one?
No, I think it was the other way. There.
That one.
Okay, so where's Mr. Underwood's house from here? Well, I guess you really can't.
There we go.
Oh, down there, okay. And the buffer, the 200 buffer,
Where is that? Okay, this is Shannon Narber's piece right here, okay? And his piece runs all the way along here. From here, from the road, all the way across here. There won't be a hunter with a shotgun anywhere through here,
Okay,
ever.
thank you.
And I wanted to talk one more time, one thing about, if I may, to help clear up this, the 10-year to the 5-year thing. And when 5 years comes around every year, it kind of, I don't know, brings up, gets the neighbors. I try to be a good neighbor. I try to honor the neighbors. I try to keep peace with the neighbors. And this 21 condition, the 21 conditions that I have, that I live with, is built real well to protect all the neighbors going forward. And if there's a neighbor that has a problem, they make a phone call to Mr. Cook. And they establish the 200-yard buffer. I mean, it's already implemented. If there's somebody buys a piece of property, or it all gets done through the planning board, the buffer zone gets put in place, I know what I'm supposed to do, so it's already implemented. That's why we asked, that's why we were asking for the 10-year. I appreciate all of you hearing this today.
Thank you, Scott. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Commissioner Kraft?
Mr. Cook? Okay. Is the buffer set at this hearing, or does that change as homes move into the area?
It does not.
Can you come to the microphone? Doug, come to the microphone.
It does not change as homes move in. The buffer is based on the property lines.
Okay. So, and it doesn't look like the property lines at this time are going to change, unless Mr. Brune sells some of his, and other people give out their waivers. So,
Yes, that would be true.
okay. I don't have any other questions at the moment.
Commissioner Rogers?
Doug, come back up. What's the science behind the distance of a buffer zone? Is this some arbitrary number picked? Because this is what I'm trying to get at. I mean, show me, his property is down there at the bottom.
Mr. Underwood's right there.
Yeah, now the gentleman that just came up, he drew that line of somebody else's deal. Armburst. What is Armburst's reference again in this?
Oh, there it was.
No, back on the orange one. That was the one we were looking at.
This one?
No, the one you would, the back, okay, yeah.
That one?
He just came up and drew a line. What is Armburst again?
Oh, okay, let me go back. Okay, so if you look over on the east
Okay,
side.
well, tell me, where is Mr. Underwood's property on this map?
Where's the mount? Right there.
Okay.
Okay, now the Narber property, as you see right there, you can kind of see this orange line right there.
Yeah.
They have signed an easement, a lease, I'm sorry, wrong term. A lease to allow the applicant on that property. And the Kretschis up here have done the same thing. But the buffer zone is still from the blue circles.
So all those circles represent what? How much?
I believe that's 200 some acres.
Each circle is 200 acres?
Oh, no. The property inside.
Oh. So each circle doesn't represent like a circular distance around. That's just so I can see the boundary.
Yes.
So my question is, what's the science behind the buffer zone? Is the buffer zone some arbitrary number you just pick out and you say, okay, I think 500 feet will be enough?
I will let the attorney, because I was not here in 91 when that buffer was.
Well, this is what I'm trying to get to. I mean, I think you got to work something out, and this is me. Because you got a 4 and 6-year-old kid, shot is in range. If the shot, and I'm not a scientist, but I do know, if it's supposed to be a buffer zone, and the shot comes outside the buffer zone, the buffer's not big enough. So what is your scientific jurisdiction for the zone
that allows a shot to come within range of his house?
I don't know the science of that, Commissioner.
Okay, that's the main issue. I don't, I got family members in Arkansas. His goal on Thanksgiving holiday is to hunt his meal. That's his sport, and I go out there with him sometimes. But I got an issue if, this guy's 4 and 6-year-old has to walk out there, and the buffer zone is not based on anything but, okay, I think this is enough. And obviously it's in his house. And so the other thing too is, why is it the requirement of the homeowner to put a marker up? If the boundary, if I'm sensing from this is a business piece, why isn't the business owner's responsibility to go out there and put the marker up where his hunting part ends?
That is the applicant's responsibility.
Okay. Well, I thought I heard the gentleman say it's the homeowners. If that's the case, I'm sorry. Okay. Because I thought he said it was the homeowner's piece. Okay. Well, then back to my deal. Somebody give me some signs behind the buffer zone, because obviously stray bullets don't have names.
If I may, I will try to explain the science. The 200-yard buffer was very, very heavily discussed in the initial application back in 1991, and there was a lot of talk about, what's safe, and the fact is that number 6 shot, which is the largest pellet that's legal to shoot under this permit, can travel, if the trajectory is right, the wind is right, it can travel more than 200 yards. The question is, what are the downrange ballistics? I can't cite you all the, ballistic energy statistics on that, but what I can tell you is there was so much discussion on it the last time around, and I'm an avid hunter, and I've done it for a lot. I enjoy it. My property lays just to the north, way at the northeast corner there, and I have a 200-yard rifle range out there. So I invited Commissioner Duda and a couple others. No, you weren't there on that one. I think it was Carol Woods Harris was out with us, and I can't remember who else. So what we did is I stood at the 200-yard mark, and I had Scott with a 12-gauge shotgun with number 6 shot in it, take several shots at me, and pellets did reach me, and I wasn't bleeding, I wasn't bruised or anything. And in fact, I think it was Carol Woods Harris said, I'd really like to see that myself from that end, but I don't want to, face the shot. So we got in my vehicle and drove her down to that end and stayed in the vehicle behind the glass, and you could hear a pellet hit, but it was like, I'd say like a raindrop hitting. So that's a practical application of the science of ballistics. Yes, it can travel further. I will tell you that no responsible hunter should be taking any shots towards a dwelling if there's any possibility of shot falling, and most of us honor that very astutely. So it's not a physical risk, but we don't want it to happen either. And Scott's been pretty careful about that. I mean, I believe you had called him one time about you heard the pellets rain down, and he's tries to be
3 to 4 times.
Okay, well, anyhow, that's kind of where it's at. If you can put the projector on this.
Well, let me ask you a question while you're up there. Since and I don't know, but I'm just trying to, because this is the most alarming thing out of it, of the whole presentation. So the boundaries or the buffer zone set in 91, I guess my question is, has the power of the guns got stronger since 91?
Not materially. I mean, they're always doing things to sell shotgun shells. It's kind of like fishing lures. There's a new color next year and a new design, but they kind of do the same thing. You can shoot higher velocity, lower velocity, but there's always a trade-off when you use like larger shot size or a 3-inch Magnum actually has lower velocity. It has more pellets. You can't put as much powder behind it without over-pressurizing the gun. So nothing that would materially change that.
So I guess I gotta ask Doug, one of those maps, the one that you originally put up there.
Say when, Commissioner.
Well, I'm trying to. Well, there was one where, okay, that may be that one where I think a buffer zone was shown. And the original question is, you know, is a buffer zone meant to have you not do anything on? Is that what a buffer, I mean, I guess my deal is the definition of a buffer. When I hear a buffer's meant you're not supposed to do anything on. That's my definition, so I don't know if that's there. A buffer means it's buffered it from doing anything on. If somebody walks on the buffer, that's not a buffer.
Okay, the record is, I guess, what I would call silent on that. It just says there shall be a 200-yard buffer zone, which there shall be no shooting. Now, does that mean somebody can't walk on it? My interpretation would be is that they can walk on it, but they can't shoot in that 200 yards.
All right, well, I'm just saying my deal is, obviously, if the guy's feeling shots, the buffer's not big enough. And I understand your point, and your point to me is an adult view, and this is how I make my comparison on that. That, you know, the only reference I got is a family reference in rural Arkansas. Rural Arkansas, you grow up in that atmosphere, and it's a whole nother deal. I would adhere more to your deal. I mean, you know, you have guns, you hunt, you drive around with a gun in your car, you know, in the middle piece. So, you know, growing up with that training of a gun piece is a whole nother thing. But this is in a quasi-urban area, except that part's out there. And I do have trouble with a 4 to 6 year old kid being in that environment and feeling pellets or having the threat of pellets and just that traumatic event around here. I mean, it's just like growing up in an urban part and you know gunfire pops off and you're scared to let your kid play in the backyard. So I feel that part. I think you got an issue there where somehow this buffer zone's got to get played out to feel more comfortable, because from how this land looks, it feels like making the buffers big is not going to take the experience away. So that's my point on it. Thank you,
Commissioner
Madam Chair.
Kavanaugh?
Mr. Brune, how many folks a year do you get come hunting at your place?
The operation, back in, just give you kind of a point from when we first started to now. We used to do 16 hunts in a day. We had 350 acres to work with, so we were going through some traffic. So we were going through some people through the place. Now we hunt family. We hunt fathers, sons, grandpas, and older people right now. These are our latter years. I personally guide these groups, and I've been guiding groups for a long period of time. I've been doing this a long time. And I understand Mr. Underwood's concern. I'd have the same concern. I feel for him. I put myself in his position when I approach their places. This is a viable thing for the community. It's a viable deal seeing kids, fathers, sons, and daughters come on out and hunt and shoot their first bird. It's a tradition of Nebraska. It's the only preservation, the only place left for this. And concerning Mr. Underwood, we're expanding his buffer zone twice of what it was. Twice. If you look at, when we're taking what he had before and he showed you where the hunters were walking through, and here's the line, here's where it was, right here. Right here is where it was. Here's where it is now. Mr. Dinsdale owns all of that property along the creek line, and we have a 200-yard buffer to the north, which is going to be set in before we hunt this fall, and gets inspected by Douglas County. I lost a little deal, so We're 200 yards, so we're actually, the buffer zone is twice. It's twice. And I'm guiding the young kids and the fathers and sons now.
Okay.
So it should help you.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. But say in 2014, how many folks did you have hunt at your place?
I don't know, maybe 50 to 100, maybe 50 to 75 to 100 people, and
In the whole year?
in a whole year.
Really?
Yeah. And our, you know what our season is? Our season really where they come out is October, November, December, is where the push is. And with the property that we hunt now, we can hunt a group, and I can go take a group out in the morning, and I can go take a group out in the afternoon. And it's basically a couple of hunts, so.
So you had, say, 100 folks in the whole year last year come hunting. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. And if I were to come out to hunt, how much does it cost?
$100.
$100 a
Yeah,
head?
for 3 birds.
Okay. And basically you're saying there's pretty much 90 days of hunting?
There's 180 days in the season, but it's warm and you have to have a frost because of the weeds. Dogs can't smell nothing. It's too warm. There's a season. Everybody knows that there's a season for hunting, and there's a season for the birds, and there's a season to do it. It's just like when somebody goes to the pumpkin patch or somebody goes mushroom hunting. There's a season.
Right.
So it's the impact to the neighbors now compared to many years ago is like cut down like it's about 75% off of what it was. And we're basically just asking to hunt some families out here, these upcoming last years that were here.
And what is the upland game that's hunted?
Well, we do upland, we do pheasant, chucker partridge and Hungarian partridge, and sometimes quail, but basically 80% of the birds that we stock, close to 85% is pheasant.
Okay. Now, on this map, that pink area is what's actually hunted, is that right?
That's totally incorrect.
Well, what is the pink area?
We can hunt along here. We can hunt all over here.
Okay, is there one of these that has the actual total hunting area on it?
I don't know. Do you have it?
If we can switch to this one. So this was, Thompson Dreesen Dorner has surveyed all the property out here in the past. So Scott went to him and had him put the buffer based on what waivers he currently has in hand today. So here's Brad's place, and you can't see the line very well, but you can follow the south property line along here. So this is what I would call the Dinsdale property down here. So with the waivers he has up here, and with this waiver, this heavy black line represents the area that can be hunted. I can't tell you what the exact acreage of that is. I don't have that figure. And then on the west side of the road, the Herlines have granted a waiver, and you take the 200-yard buffer that's mandated off of 225th Street. This property is changing hands, so he has not talked to, it's supposed to close this week, so he hasn't talked to them about a waiver for this upcoming year. So this black line represents, he has a waiver from the Pashas over here. He could hunt this over here, and if these people consent in the future, that line would go straight up that way. Is that confusing or not confusing?
So there's a couple different hunting areas, is that right?
Correct.
And you either hunt one or you hunt the other. I mean, you're not traipsing across to go to the other one.
No, I mean,
No, just transport.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll be transported over.
Now, at the planning board hearing, I think there was some testimony from one of the planning commissioners that according to Shotgun World website, a number 6 pellet would travel 250 to 265 yards depending on angle of elevation, muzzle velocity, and wind direction. Is that consistent with what you're talking about in terms of the range of these shotguns?
Well,
That's Commissioner Lichter at the planning board, must be a shotgun guy. And he said that according to Shotgun World website, number 6 pellet would travel 250 to 265 yards, and he continued that most shooting ranges have a 300-yard buffer to be on the safe side.
Mr. Underwood, like I said earlier, has got about 400 yards. I mean, he's got quite a space. And we're trying to help him out. And, I mean, we could have brought in all the rest of the neighbors here to show you that they have families that are butted up against this. To answer your question, we're country folks, and we're taught well. I'm old school. I'm taught old school. And I was taught by my 100 years of hunting, I was taught the right way. And these neighbors, why we are in business right now, it's because of me. I've been doing this since I've been 28 commercially. And when there's a bird that goes into a direction that's unsafe, I'm a pretty big guy. I do a safety presentation before I sit down with them. And I give them a good verbal knowing who's boss. I do it with everybody that comes onto place. Because I know what it is, I feel for the neighbors, and that's why I'm still doing it. That's why I've been doing it for 25 years, because of me. And I represent this game parks in Douglas County, and it's a safe environment, and the reason why we're doing it is because I'm serious about it.
Now, when you're not using this for hunting, what's the land used for?
We just, for preparation, do some dog training. Basically, we relax. You know, we do some things. We do some family activities. My church do the ranger program, and we do some kids doing some. We do some ministry out there. We do some camps for the kids for the churches, and you know, it's we just basically prepare it for the upcoming season and getting ready for that. So it's it's my livelihood. You know?
Is it assessed as farmland or as green space for tax purposes?
It's farmland.
Okay. Is there an actual crop on any part of this parcel?
We have crops, yeah, and it's also part of the CRP program, Conservation Soil Program. Has been for many years.
At the planning hearing, Mr. Dinsdale, who's a neighbor, right? Indicated that the requested the county review more frequently than 5 years through the development of the area. And I believe you've stated that your previous agreements have all been 5 years. And at the hearing, Mr. Hammond stated that he would love to have a 10-year term permit, but that he would be happy with the 5-year terms granted in the past. Would that work for you to just do 5 years again? Because of the, you know, it's kind of a developing area, and things change quicker than probably a 10-year period.
Had this discussion with Steve Rosenblatt in '91. Do you see it that way?
This is a case of first impression.
How far away is this from the landfill? I mean, I'm just going to ask questions, but I mean, I'm not trying.
He's fine. He's fine.
I mean, what I'm trying to get my point across. I sold a piece of property by the landfill for same amount of property we sold a 20 for. This is real close to the landfill. I don't really see this as, I had that discussion, they thought back in '91 that it's going to be houses coming out here so fast. Can water and sewer come to here? I mean, that's a question I have. I mean, we've owned this property since '62. And my cousin Bobby, they have property like this too up north, and we thought so too. My dad thought back in the 60s it was going to be a gold mine. And I sold property right next to the dump, same price. So it's a preservation area. Marty Schuker did a 20-year plan. You're going to bust up just 20-acre parcels on this property. I see it as preservation. I see it as
This is the monthly test of the emergency alert system for the broadcast and cable systems of Nebraska. Equipment is being tested that can quickly provide warnings during emergencies. If this had been an actual emergency, official messages would have followed the alert tone. This concludes this test of the emergency alert system.
And that's what's really amazing too is all the hunters, tens of thousands. We ran through there, tens of thousands. I have had 250,000 pheasants through my fingers. No fatality.
Thank you.
Commissioner Duda.
Thank you. A couple of comments. One was, it was very interesting, and I don't remember what the year was. I'm thinking Bernice Lebeds was with us when we came out. And Mr. Hammond stood there, and we stood, I guess that was 200 yards away, and Scott Brune took a shot at him and offered us the shotgun and said, go for it. But we couldn't come any closer than that. There's been a number of attorneys that I wish would make that offer, but they have not. I'm always sorry when Mike Boyle is not here for these. But there is, well, a couple of other thoughts. There are not many hunting opportunities in the Omaha area. I mean, as a farmer on the edge of the city, I know there's a lot of people that would like to go hunting and really can't around here. You've got to travel a long way to find good hunting area and area where you can get permission. It's hard for the average guy that wants to go out pheasant hunting to find a place to go without having to travel to South Dakota or somewhere quite a ways away. And so I do see some need, some demand in the marketplace for some type of commercial hunting like this. I think it does actually serve a purpose in the Omaha area to have some hunting, commercial hunting available nearby. There's a lot of people that take advantage of that and like that. In terms of, is the land being used for farming purposes, CRP automatically qualifies as agricultural land by definition, state law. Conservation Reserve Program, it's highly erodible ground. It has to be to qualify for the program, and it's made for places like this with steep ground that is going to be prone to erosion, and so the government says, enroll it in the CRP, we'll pay you a little bit of rent on it, and the state says this automatically is farmland by definition. So there's nothing out of the ordinary going on with that. Whether it's 5 years or 10 years, that's kind of subjective, but to me it seems like they run a good operation, have a good track record, and if you can find ways to try to keep neighbors comfortable with your operation, that's what we all want. That's what they want, that's what you want, that's what we want.
Amen.
So, thank you.
Commissioner Kraft.
You brought up the proximity to the landfill. What is the proximity to the landfill?
I think we're about 3 miles, about 3.5 miles south of the landfill, and I have no objection. I think the landfill is put in the right place.
Well, no, that just needed for relationships. Mr. Underwood, could you come up? I'd like to ask you. Future development of the area.
Yes.
Do you feel the proximity to the landfill is going to affect it?
No, I think we're far enough from the landfill that it doesn't.
Okay. When he said 3 miles, I kind of thought the same. By the way, Commissioner Rogers would love to have a 200-yard buffer zone in his neighborhood.
Understand.
And has the buffer zone been expanded near your property to 400 yards?
Not that I'm aware of. I think one of the points, and I don't know if I can have that slide up again that's got the yellow and pink. Yes. The 2 parcels north of me, Scott has told you that this originally, I don't know if there was 350 acres in 91. Scott has sold these parcels next to me and leases them, but the piece that's kind of, again, the flag-shaped lot, I've met the owner, Shannon Narber. They're planning a home there. I would assume that the Krejcis on the next lot are planning a home. All the more reason, I think, to not consider a 10-year permit. This area is going to, I agree with you, Mr. Kraft, that this area is going to change faster in the next 5 years than it has in the last 25, probably. My dad's a lifelong Omaha, and he said, take a picture of me hunting out by Burke High School back in the 40s or 50s, and show him that the city moves and that the permits and the laws need to move to reflect that changing reality. So I just want a buffer that I feel comfortable with. I'm not trying to shut Scott's business down, but as those houses move in there, and it's an inevitable deal, and there may be Pheasant Haven that relocates 15 miles west from there, and it's still a viable business. But I don't think you can sell off 20-acre parcels to people who are going to build acreages and not expect that your huntable area is going to shrink, and also that you're going to get more opposition from those people who've invested in the land and are going to have home. And my kids are not the only kids. There are kids on 3 sides of that, and I guess every parent has the right to say, we'll waive our buffer, or you can hunt right to the property, but I would not subject my 2 children to a 200-yard shotgun test. That's insane.
Commissioner?
I'm not done.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So, Mr. Broom, how did you come to the conclusion that the buffer has expanded from 200 yard to 400 yard by his property? Explain that to me. There seems to be a difference of opinion.
Isn't it so that Sid Dinsdale has requested a 200-yard buffer north of his property line?
I can't answer if it is or not.
I'm going to read it right now. I see it's-
Yeah, I think all Scott is saying is on the, oh, this is the wrong slide. Here, we'll do this. Can you put up this one? Yeah, so what Scott is saying is you have the Dinsdale property line that goes across here through here, so that pushes 200 yards up that way. And then you have the 200-yard buffer this way, so all the hunting activity ends up in here, which in essence gets you 400 yards from that house, I think is what your point was. It's not that it's...
Wait a minute, say that again. Can you say that again?
So, because he can't hunt down in this area, down here, the 200-yard line is somewhere over in here, but really because of the Dinsdale 200-yard buffer, it pulls it back even further. You got a buffer coming in from the west, you got a buffer coming in from the south, and so you don't even have hunters, I mean, really all the way over to the Armbrust property line.
I can wait, because
Yeah, I'm so confused, but...
See this?
You have
Let me try to... Got this pen. I shake all over. See this black? See this? This is a center. The blue pin is there. That's the center of the property that I'm going to hunt. All this outlined right here, this square right here, is what we are going to hunt, and I am going to guide them in this area right here. So, all this area right here, buffer. And there's a lot of land here. From Mr. Underwood's house here, the 200 line is right around here now. Does it look like there's another 200 yards here? You know, that's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
Is it's expanded. See this area here?
I think I've got it now.
Okay.
What are the penalties should one of your hunters be flushing a bird and turn around and shoot in the wrong direction? I know
Zero
you're there.
policy at my place.
There might be a policy. What are the repercussions should that happen?
We do a very verbal and this relies on me, on who I am.
What are the repercussions is what I'm asking.
If somebody shoots towards a house, or
Yes, a bird flies out and they're flushing him out and he decides to pull and shoot and he turns. What are the repercussions?
It really isn't a repercussion, but what I can help you out with, I set the birds.
Not being a hunter, I don't know what setting the bird.
What I do is I take a bird and I will set up a route. I will actually set the bird. You call up for 20 birds, come hunt 20 birds. I can physically go set those birds.
And they stay in place?
They stay in place for over 2 hours where I set them. A dog locks up on them, and then we walk it, and we can actually flush the bird to which way we want to flush it. So by me setting up the hunt, it's another thing that we do, besides the safety, is I can set birds in this area, in this interior area that we're going to hunt, and set up the route in these areas to where we can, you know, it's even...
And there are no birds on there that you haven't set? Doesn't happen?
There's some, yeah, there's some. There's some birds that are on there, but it's, you know, there's a lot of predators and, you know, so, and with this buffer zone area, where this area is at, I would imagine that a lot of these birds are going to be, you know, not where we're going to be hunting them in this area where we're at now. It's going to be a little different.
And I've heard the name Mr. Dinstall, and I know a number of people with the last name Dinstall. Does this gentleman have young children?
Mr. Dinsdale?
Yes.
He has grandchildren. He has 2 of them.
Okay, but none that live on the property, just visit?
No, his son lives, they bought the property here.
Right here. His son-in-law and daughter are building a house right now. Are they the ones that have the 2 grandkids?
Okay, that answers that question. I have nothing else at the moment.
Commissioner Rogers?
Yes, let me state that, you know, you should be a testament to a person that's got a complaint. If they got a complaint, find a way to come here, because after reading this, I mean, I thought it was pretty routine. I was checked out. I mean, ready to pass it till I heard your comments. And I just say that because I understand the point that you want to make, and I want to support it. This is my only concern because, one, your example of the 200-mile marker to me, and I'm not a, you know, I don't work for NASA or anything, but the application of 400 feet to me only applies if you shoot from way down there. If there's not some radius around there, if you go to a certain place, there's no longer 400 feet. So, you know, just saying that there's 200, I give you an extra 200 because of where that is, yeah, that extra 200 applies there if people hunt from there. But basically your area is closer there. And the point is, at least getting this, and I'm thinking, Doug, tell me, the rationale for the permit process is that the environment around you has changed. Now, reading the minutes, Sid Dinsdale says that he speaks neutral in the capacity. The applicant does a good job, and I think nobody doubts that. It's just the circumstances around you have changed, because he says county review more frequently than 5 years to the development in the area. And that's the point I think I need to make, because even the business argument is that the market around has changed. And even looks like Mr. Underwood from the minutes was in support of till he had kids. And everybody's world changes when you have some kids to some degree. And even Dinsdale says he expressed a concern about his grandchildren being around the property boundaries. The point I'm trying to make is the argument was made that the permit process, to me, can't be any longer than the 5. There's a good argument to make that it should be, because as development change, that area is going to change, and to lock it in by the fact of the permit process, a guy says in the minutes, he moved out there, he knew what the atmosphere was, it should be buyer beware. Well, the permit process eliminates buyer beware, because every time you ask for a permit and every time you relook at the permit, the conditions change, and it seems like the environment around it should change. Because that, to me, is what the permit process looks like it should be for. So I just say all that to say, we're not going to get it solved in the public hearing today. I don't think this closes and moves. I'm just saying, for me, the atmosphere is not like it was in '91, and the gentleman made the point that I was going to make. You know, I want you to. I mean, I've experienced the hunting experience. I understand where it's from. I definitely agree with what Commissioner Duda is saying, that they should have that, but I just think you got to sit down and come to some terms, because the environment is changing and it's going to continue to change. And I think the argument has definitely been made that you definitely can't lock it into 10 years, because to lock a home buyer into 10 years is not respecting the market and how it's changing around there. So that's all I have, Madam Chair.
I have just a rebuttal on that. Is that okay?
Well, let me make a few comments for Scott, because this is in my district, and I've been out there numerous times at the beginning. I mean, this chamber there was a lot more people when we first did this, back when I got on the board.
Yes.
And I want to make one, just to make sure everybody's on the same page, that the hunting area is within that black dotted line by the lake. That's where the hunting occurs. But secondly, and this probably goes maybe to the attorney, or you probably know too, Scott, or Mr. Underwood knows, that if we did not have this permit, you would still be permitted to hunt your property at all boundaries, correct?
Correct.
Okay. That was one of the reasons why we wanted the permit, was to be able to create those buffers because of, one, the safety, two, the arguments that the neighbors were making, and we sat down with all of them at the time and was agreed upon as to what that should be. And it's moved those years, moved along those with that buffer for these years. I'm not arguing that the atmosphere out, the environment out there is changing. And with that, Scott, I can kind of count as people are talking, and I don't feel the support for 10 years is here. If we would close the public hearing today and vote, I don't think that would pass. But I am hearing that a 5-year would pass. And so I'm asking you, would you be okay, which I know it's not the best of all worlds, but would you be okay with a 5-year extension of your current permit? I know it's hard. I know. I get it. But at the same time, as a compromise and to get a permit, I think the 5 years is probably the best bet to go at this time. And I think, and I have over the years, when we first granted it, there were many calls, and I have had no calls in over 19 years. I've been here 21 years. And the people out there know that if there's a problem and Scott isn't addressing it, they know to call me. And I think that they'll still know that.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think, to be able to address all the issues and still be able to have you have your livelihood. And I know it's 5 years, and we've talked, about all of this over the course of the years. I think that's probably the best bet to go today once I close this public hearing and the board decides to take some action.
Yes,
So, I just wanted to make the point, though, that if we did not have this permit, if we did not have this special use permit, any property owner out there, including Scott, could hunt without any boundaries.
I'd like to just give you an example of that. I cut lease with my Sid Dinsdale property, my sister-in-law Patty Hertel. I had a lease with her, and I cut lease with her because we were downsizing our operation. We weren't as busy, and we didn't need all the ground. So I cut lease with her. She opens up a private hunt club. There's guys walking with rifles along the fence line over by Long's over here on this east side. They're calling me up. Scott, what are you doing? I go, I don't know. I don't lease it no more. I go, it's a private hunt club now. Well, what about the buffer? What about... They put all the neighbors back in shock. In shock. And I just called up Patty and I go, Patty, you need to shut this thing down right now. So the handcuffs are on pretty much, basically, to be physical about it, which is good with me because I want to honor the neighbor. And I have the experience necessary to do it, and like Marianne says, there was probably every seat in this house was filled, back in the 90s, because we had a sporting clay course, and I drew the line in the sand. I said we won't have no sporting clay course because of the noise. And now all the neighbors, 98% of them, they like it. They like the security, they like the safetiness of it, and they know who I am. And I'm attentive to any issues. And I don't bring up issues. I cut issues off in the bud before it even happens. And that's just by experience. So, yeah.
Commissioner Kraft?
Yes. I don't think anybody doubts that you're a very good operator, Scott. I do need to clarify if my understanding is correct, because I understood at the very beginning when it was stated that, without this, there'd be no restrictions on your hunting or inviting people to hunt. But you cannot invite people and charge them to hunt, correct?
Correct.
Without this permit. So tell me about how a private club that your sister-in-law was running, did she not have to have a permit?
Who knows? I didn't even go into that detail with her.
Okay. To the attorney or to, yes?
Yeah, I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Clark?
I'm not familiar with what she was doing down there,
Okay.
what she had.
Mr. Clark?
Commissioner Kraft, I'm not aware of that either.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Mr. Underwood?
Yes.
Do you have any additional questions for us or concerns? Do you feel better now or worse? Or?
I would feel better if the 20-acre parcel that Mr. Brune leases that's adjacent to us was not considered for the hunting area. And in that case, there's no hunting on it. It's all completely unbuffered. It would address my concerns of seeing hunters coming over the hill with guns and not knowing whether there was going to be shooting or not going to be shooting. I've shown pictures of hunters in that area.
Yes.
And I would be supportive of a 5-year extension if I knew that I wasn't going to see a hunter. And that is a piece that Mr. Brune owned and has sold. There is going to be a house in there. I would think within the 5 years. That landowner's not here to tell me his plans, but just in conversations I've had with him, he plans to build there. So maybe the problem either fixes itself or it creates a new one here before 5 years. But my request of Scott a couple weeks ago was that I would offer my short-term support in exchange for the 20 acres, and I don't have the parcel number, but it is the one that's directly north of me being removed from the next.
Mr. Brune, could you address that for me?
Can I back that up?
Scott?
It's the piece, the flag-shaped lot with no pink hunting area on it, and no one there has signed a waiver to allow it. So it's basically area that hunters walk on to flush birds.
Okay.
I don't think that's necessary because the 200-yard buffer is self-regulating. If, I believe that's the Narber property down there, if Narber builds a house on that property and chooses to have the 200-yard buffer honored, in other words, if they don't waive the buffer, they don't have to do anything. They can just not grant the waiver, and that 200-yard buffer would then be in place. Let me find that mouse. If they withdrew their lease and waiver, then that 200 yards would stretch up to the north, whatever 200 yards goes. So that's, if they build a house out there and choose not to lease it to them and not to grant a waiver, then the 200-yard buffer just keeps moving on its own. And that would be true of any other property he sold off of there.
Thank you.
Commissioner Rogers?
So I want to build off what you were saying, Commissioner Borkson. One, the blacks, and I'm just getting a bearing for this, the black piece, I understood the piece about, from the start, everybody has their own private piece. The leases allow you to operate as a business. The black is yours?
That's the lake.
The lake, sorry. I guess this is, I guess, Doug, the question I have is, let's say, for instance, from what you just said, this arrangement is the plot of land that Mr. Underwood just described. You're saying if somebody went to the planning board, they got permission to build there would automatically be a recalibration of the buffer based on that house?
Correct. It becomes part of his permit now because they're leasing it to him for hunting rights. If they terminate that lease and don't grant him a buffer, then not only is this entire parcel out, but he could have a 200-yard buffer running along wherever it would fall in there.
So I guess I'm trying to understand the binding of the fire use permit. So say you get the permit. Somebody comes in next year, they want to build there. They go to the planning department. Does the permit open up for renegotiation based on that? I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
It does not come back before the county board because the 200-yard buffer just follows whatever is within the permit. If he doesn't have this lease anymore, he can't hunt the land, regardless of what the permit says. And if he loses the lease and they don't grant it, so that if he loses the lease, that takes out this parcel. And what's more, if they don't want to grant a waiver, that also moves the buffer up here.
Okay, this is my only deal, and I don't know where this goes today, but my only deal is, like I said before, my question to Doug was, what's the signs that says 200 is enough, okay? The gentleman in the minute says that this Shotgun World website travels 250 to 265. Okay, now I'm just basing it on that. If it's 200, it says it travels 265. That's the original point I wanted to make for the gentleman. Make the buffer a little bigger, I'm fine.
But what Scott's point was is that he already has. So the original buffer, unless I'm misunderstanding, the original buffer from Mr. Underwood's house is the 200. But because of the Dinsdale property, it's moved that buffer up in not a straight across, but in an angled of an additional 200. So the buffer but from Mr. Underwood's house, and you can come forward if I'm
Sure.
saying it wrong.
If I may, if a hunter is right here shooting at this direction, that's 200 yards. That hasn't increased. And what you said, Mr. Rogers, is correct. If someone's back here, yes, that's additional buffer. But from this point, nothing's increased. I noted in my letter that I don't think that the flag markers that are out, I think they're down here. I don't think they reflect the county's 200-yard buffer map, and I don't know if it was measured differently. I don't know that, I think we're looking at different maps of what the huntable area is, and I don't know if the county determines that, if Mr. Brune determines that, like who actually verifies that the markers are 200 yards away from my property.
That's not the correct map. Can you put your map back up, Lee?
This is the map that the county prepared.
Right.
County permits people according to the agreement can check out anytime, spot check the map.
Right.
Spot check the
So the heavy black line here is what Thompson, Dries, and Dorner computed based on waivers they had in hand the other day, the 200-yard buffer. And how that scales off to Brad's property, I don't know the exact measurement there, but that meets all the requirements there.
Okay. So I understand what you're saying, though, Mr. Underwood. It depends on where you are on that buffer from your house. So it could be at the 200 if you're up on that side, but if you're down here, it's still 200 at the lowest point. If you're at that little dip there, Scott?
Yes, ma'am.
At the farthest point?
I don't know where this pointer is, but...
Here, it's over here now.
If you're right...
Okay, I want to explain that terrain and the terrain right there. This is a bowl.
Where?
This is this line right here, Lee. That line that he's pointing at is a bowl of probably like 30 to 40 to 50. It's a bowl all the way through there. It's not flat or a tabletop where if a shotgun shot and shot towards Mr. Underwood's house, that would reach. The shot would go up. When we did the test with Lee Hammond, the optimum range for 200 for this shot to even hit him is 0 to 10 degrees elevation of the shotgun. You have a question of 250 yards. That's 0 to 10 degrees. Can you look? That's what it would, right, Lee? So when the bird gets up and gets flushed, what is the percentage of the shotgun being at that 0 to 10 degrees? And at this spot right here towards Mr. Underwood's house, the shotgun would be like this in the air because it's a bowl shape. The bird gets up, they're going to shoot, and the shotgun should be pretty much straight in the air, upwards. So, reaching his house, I think it's a good. It's all a bowl. It's all a valley, there. So, it looks good.
Okay, thank you. No other questions or comments from anyone on the board or in the chamber? I will close the public hearing. What is the will of the board?
Madam Chair, I would make the motion to grant the permit with a 5-year termination.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Any other questions or comments? Please vote. Oh,
Madam Chair, just a clarification.
Can you come to the-
All the previous conditions.
Doug, can you come to the microphone?
I'm sorry. Just a clarification, Commissioners, that your decision is to approve for 5 years with the same conditions from 2010 minus the 2 that were...
Yeah.
Whatever conditions were there when it came to the planning board, that's what I am moving the approval of.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Which is this
Please,
document, right?
yep, except for 5.
Right.
Please vote. Okay, thank you all for being here today. Next is a public hearing B, provide additional budget dollars for employee fringe account and juvenile court, along with data-driven budget increases for sheriff, juvenile assessment center, and public defender. This increases the budget for Civil Service Commission, transfer budget dollars that are set aside in salary adjustment account for future salaries. Mr. Lorenz, do you want to say anything about it?
Yeah, we're going to shift from bullets to budget, although they're more similar than you think,
kind of similar.
because this time of year I feel like I'm taking a lot of flack, but with that in mind, let me explain that we twice a year go for a budget supplement. We took one in January that typically is driven by the salary increases that have been approved by the county board in mid-December. And this is our second and final budget supplement that we usually do here in sometime in mid to late May or early June. And what it's comprised of this year is a transfer of $160,327 from the salary adjustment fund, and $22,288 would go to the general fund to fund department increases from labor contract settlements in the general garage and environmental services. And then $138,039 would go to the budget of the health department, again to fund a union contract settlement. So in total, it's $160,000. We have about $360,000 left in the salary adjustment account. So this would just be a transfer from the salary adjustment account to those three departments. And essentially, it's funded. The next group of budget supplements, there's basically two of them that are material and not funded. The first, it would be a request to increase the general fund employee fringe benefits account, which is the payment of the county share of health insurance premiums, by $1.5 million. When we put the budget together about a year ago, we had a very good first half of the year, and so we were projecting that premiums would increase about 4.5%, between 4 and 5%. We had a bad experience in the second half of the year, so based on that, Aon made the recommendation to us that the fringe benefits, the premiums should be increased by 9%. And that 9% increase went into effect on January 1st, 2015. And so what this $1.5 million does is essentially funds that account so that we have enough money for the county's share of the payments to transfer from the employee fringe benefit account to the general health insurance account that claims are paid out of. So, like I said, that's $1.5 million. The second one that really doesn't have a revenue offset is juvenile court, where there's a request for incremental fees driven by the guardian ad litem cases that are currently being assigned right now. And this one, I originally talked to Ray Curtis, and he told me that the attorney's fees are running about $50,000 a week, and in order to meet that $50,000 a week payment, he would need an additional $250,000. But yesterday he called Patrick and said that, or this morning, he called Patrick and said that he could reduce that amount to $97,000. And how he could do that is basically he would cap his weekly payments, only paying up to $25,000 a week instead of $50,000. And so that could work for this year's budget, but what it really does is push the issue to next year, which, you know, we've been talking about the guardian ad litem and their budget for next year. So, you know, like I say, he could get by with about $100,000 this year, but then, you know, there's over $100,000 sitting there in unpaid attorney's fees on July 1st. So I guess I would throw that out to the commissioners and see what their thoughts are.
Commissioner Kavanaugh?
Joe, are claims for attorney's fees submitted to you or to us, to the county, by the juvenile court, lawyers, the lawyers appointed by the juvenile court?
No, since these are, the ones that we see and pay are the contractual claims within Contro and Moynihan. These are claims for court-appointed attorneys, and those are processed through the juvenile court, through Ray Curtis's area.
Okay, but are a list of those claims submitted to us?
Commissioners, the bills are sent via court order to the clerk's office. They're processed and paid.
Okay. And have you seen those? I mean, do they track what you're saying Mr. Curtis said?
You'd have to ask the clerk.
I'm sorry, he said $50,000 a week, correct?
Right.
Okay. Have you seen claims that comport with $50,000 a week?
Well, I've seen that they've been tracking higher. You know, it's shown up on our screen. If you go to their expense budget and you go to juvenile court, they're, 90% spent with 87% of the year gone. And so I think there could be 5 or 6 weeks of bills set. So I really haven't seen the detail of which bills he hasn't paid. This has all just basically been in discussions with Ray Curtis, who runs that area. But unfortunately, his wife went into labor this morning, so he's not able to be here.
I understand that. So are you saying that those amounts appear in the attachment under the Finance Committee of the daily expenditure budget comparisons by summary and organization?
Yeah, what shows up are the expenses that get sent to the clerk's office, that they are sent to the clerk's office and then entered into the Oracle accounts and paid. So, but the discretion of how much of them he's sending is coming from the juvenile court, what exactly they send to the clerk's office.
Okay. Now, specifically, I'm looking at organization juvenile court, item 567000.
Right.
Is it in that line item that we're looking at these amounts?
Yes.
Okay. And reading across, are you looking at the same thing I'm referencing here?
So what's the remaining balance number you're looking at?
Well, that's what I'm trying to get to. I'm reading across here, and it has the organization, then the salaries without fringe benefits, and salaries variance, miscellaneous variance, total expense, percent spent, annual budget, remaining balance.
Yeah. So I think the key number there is right now they have about $100,000 negative variance as of mid-May with 6 weeks to go. So the key number there is the minus 100,046, and that's the amount they're running ahead of their pro rata amount of the budget.
All right. Well, we might want to revisit this in the Finance Committee discussions relative to the budget with a little more specificity so that we know exactly what we have been paying and what we are being requested to pay going forward.
What we could do, Commissioners, is pull out this request from juvenile court and pick that up later when Ray Curtis would be here. But I would request that the rest of the supplement goes through because by the time of the next payroll, which is coming up in 2 weeks, we're going to need the money for employee fringe benefits. So what I would request is that we could pull the request for juvenile court.
That sounds like a great idea. I'd make that motion.
Is that a motion to approve or we're still in the public hearing, so hang on one second.
And I could take you through the remainder of the amounts. Yeah. There's $91,000 for Juvenile Assessment Center, of which $80,000 is incremental grants that they're given that have to be spent by June 30th, so there's a revenue offset. And then there's $10,000 or $11,000, which is the accrued vacation payout for Kim Culp, which, given her retirement, the vacation payout isn't really in the budget. So there's, about $10,000 that's not funded for her payout. The public defender, those are 2 grant-funded positions that this is the first year the public defender has really gone out and got grant-funded money. So he has those 2 positions, and there is a revenue offset, so this would just be increasing his budget to reflect those positions which are funded through grants. The sheriff has a $22,000 grant, which is an increase in a HIDA grant that they get. Again, there's a full revenue offset of that. And then civil service, there's $15,000 there to reflect a vacation payout for Lee Lejeune, who also retired about the same time as Kim Culp. And so if we did that, we were asking for $1,955,748. If we pull the 250, it would become like $1,705,748. And so that would be, I guess, what I request approval of today.
Anyone else wishing to speak during the public hearing? Commissioner Duda?
Just a quick point that this will require then another public hearing in 2 weeks when we take up juvenile court again.
Right.
So, fine.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments during the public hearing? I will close the public hearing. What's the will of the board?
Madam Chairman, I'd make a motion reflecting what Mr. Lorenz indicated on the final amount being, I believe, adjusted to exclude the $250,000 juvenile court attorney's fees for guardian ad litem cases amount, and coming in at a total of $1,705,748.
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
I just want to make one comment on the guardian ad litem. The courts are opting to appoint outside of the contracts that aren't up until June. So that's, in my opinion, why we're seeing some of these increases. That doesn't mean that they could still appoint up inside those contracts, and then those attorneys would just carry on after the contracts are terminated, if the judge so desires. So I think they need to take a real hard look at that, because I don't think we need a supplemental budget for that line item. No other questions or comments? Please vote. We'll move to committees, the first being the Budget or Finance Committee, and Commissioners Morgan and Kavanaugh. First item being the budget report.
I think, yes, we have a report from Mr. Lorenz in your packet, and following the board meeting today, we'll be meeting up on 9:03 on, I believe it's Assessor Register of Deeds, the County Clerk.
And Youth Center. We're going to go County Clerk first, then Youth Center, and third will be the combined Assessor Register of Deeds.
So upon adjournment, let's give us 20 minutes, and then we'll meet upstairs.
We have executive session.
Yeah, upon the adjournment of after the executive session.
Okay. Next was the criminal justice, and since Commissioner Boyle isn't here, we'll hold that over until for 2 weeks till he's here. The human resources is the weekly personnel report from civil service as presented, unless anyone has any questions or comments. the weekly CAO report on staff assaults.
Nothing to report.
And next is the legislative issues, really no updates other than what we're still following for the closing of the session here fairly soon. The reports in your packet. And if there are any updates, we'll be sure to get those out to you. We do have need for an executive session for for litigation. Is there a motion to go into executive session for litigation?
So moved.
Don't all speak at once. Is there a second? Please vote. Commissioner Duda reluctantly said yes. And just so you know, I won't be at the finance daddy's ministry. They're going to take it after this meeting.
Okay. It's going to be a quickie, I think. I'd like to get out to the fading road.
Yeah.
I said, I've got 4 and 6-year-old kids. I said, well, we can go.
Motion passes.
Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesty above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood, from sea to shining sea.